Ladies and gentlemen, we're into the 30th anniversary of the Montreal Canadiens Stanley Cup win in 1993. And when I was working with Dalhousie News as their sports editor in that, what I call late spring, early summer of 93, I said this guy was the straw that stirred the drink for Montreal in overtime, kind of give a reference to Reggie Jackson. No matter when he was on the ice, he was always doing something. Now, there's some controversy going on with Gilbert. Some of the media at the time felt it was kind of egotistical for him when he scored in overtime. He pointed to himself, but that's the type of player he was. He was always trying to contribute to the glorious ones. Now, Gilbert Dionne, the younger brother of Marcel, I think, is 19 years older than he is. Native of Drummondville, 6 feet 194, a left winger. Very, very strong player. Montreal took a top 85 pick on him in the 1990 draft, and I think it's one of the best drafts they ever did in that early stage of the 1990s because he played a number of seasons with Montreal. He also skated with the Flyers and the Panthers and, of course, the Cincinnati Cyclones. Now, as a youth, Dionne played in 82 and 83 Quebec International Pee Wee Hockey Tournament with a minor hockey squad from Drummondville. Now, eventually drafted 81st overall by the Habs in the 1990 draft. He had a very productive career in the juniors. Now, first came to major prominence with the Niagara Falls Canucks of the GHL. 88 campaign was tremendous, 84 points in 36 games. 89 with the Kitchener Rangers of the OHL, he had 44 points in 66 games. But in 1990, he opened out, ladies and gentlemen. 105 points in 64 games, 48 goals, 57 assists, 23 games in the playoffs, and of course 10 points in the Rangers' strong run at the Memorial Cup. Now, 91, he spent the majority of his season putting up tremendous numbers with the Fredericton Canadiens, 87 points in 77 games, played 2 games with the Habs, and was also a force with the Baby Habs playoff run with 11 points in 9 postseason. 92, in his rookie campaign, if he would have played a full season, probably he would have scored at least 35, 40 goals. He had 46 points with the Baby Habs in 29 games, but eventually in the big club, 21 big goals in 39 contests, 34 points, and a very impressive 7 points in the postseason. 93, which a lot of people consider his best year as a pro, 20 goals in 75 games, but in the postseason, a big 6 goals and 6 assists in 20 games. Of course, the Stanley Cup ring fits very well on his finger because of all the great work he did in the postseason again. In the overtimes, him and his line mates were always there. He did play with the Baby Habs that year with 7 points in 3 games. 94, 45 points in 74 games, 19 goals. 95, he had a rough campaign, no goals, 9 assists in 26 combined games with the Canadiens and Flyers. 96, he spent time with Philadelphia, 2 games with 1 assist. With the Panthers, he had 1 goal and 2 assists in 5 games. Found himself with the Carolina Monarchs in the 96 campaign with 43 goals and 58 assists in 101 games. Now, Carolina, 97, 88 points in 72 games. Then he's big 4 seasons with the Cincinnati Cyclones, 42, 35, 34, and 23 contests. Now, in the DAL, he played 2 seasons. Krellville Penguin and the Hanover Scorpions, 32 goals and 108 games. 04, he found himself in the OHA Senior League with 22 goals with Cambridge in 04, 16 in 05 in 25 games. And his last season in the MLH, he had 35 points in 19 games. Very impressive pro totals. Well over 300 goals total. 67 goals, 79 assists, 140 points in 223 NHL games. AHL, he had 329 points, 147 goals in 236 games. And the IHL totals, great as well, 134 goals, 336 points in 313 games. And his postseason stats in all 3 leagues are very tremendous. 76 games total, 23 postseason goals, 28 assists, for a grand total of 61 points. Now, not known to take a penalty very often, very smart player. Did take a lot of penalties with Fredericton in a very small Aiken Center. Only a only a priest would not take a penalty they consider because every time you move, somebody would hit you. But again, a very, very cerebral player and a very, very, what do you call, strong player for the fans because he was always doing something important. Now, making the NHL All Rookie team was again a highlight for him in '92. But the idea when he left Montreal, a lot of people felt the fire was gone for his game. Now, the deal to the Flyers was this. So Mark Recchi joined Montreal along with a draft pick, and Desjardins and Leclerc went over to the Flyers with Dionne. And obviously, you know what happened there. Considered one of the worst trades in Montreal history because it took the fire out of Dionne in a lot of people's opinion. Desjardins was not washed up in any shape or form, and Leclerc, the Legion of Doom line in Philadelphia, changed the NHL. Leclerc was still coming on because that 93 postseason overtime goals were just indication of the great play the American would do. Now, his Flyers career again saw him suit up 20 times his first season and managed 6 assists, and soon lost his regular position and found himself fighting to stay on the lower order lines. Now, being a minor league star led to this. One of the few times in recent memory that the ECHL has retired a number. His jersey number 21 against retired by the Cyclones on December 2006 in recognition of Gilbert Dionne Day. Again, 4 seasons with the Cyclones and led the team in scoring twice and became the franchise's second leading career scorer behind the very dedicated and very underrated Don Biggs. Now, my thoughts about Gilbert Dionne, I didn't put him in my column just to show off because I was noticing something on his play. When you're the brother or the son or the grandchild or whatever of a superstar player in Marcel Dionne, there's a lot of pressure. But I always noted with Gilbert, and that's just me, he was always doing something. Now, the only player I can really compare him to from the era or the era of the 1970s, you look at kind of Chuck Lefley or Murray Wilson. I know it's kind of weird because Wilson and Lefley were quite fast, but Dionne was always doing something. I say this with all sincerity. When you're playing third line for the Montreal Canadiens, you're scoring 20 goals, you must be doing something. So I would see him in 4-on-4 or 5-on-5 situations. It was always very interesting because we're so used to Marcel doing the same things at a higher level. But Gilbert, under the Montreal defensive style he had, 20 goals in Montreal would be worth 40 goals every place else. To me, he could have been a 30-goal scorer with any team he was, but being traded from Montreal, and it broke the heart of a lot of fans too. Not only losing Leclerc and Desjardins, because we thought Gilbert was going to be like a true assistant captain down the road, and that's the era where the francophone aspect of the Habs was coming back because you had Carbonneau and you had Belanger and a lot of the players, Patrick as well. It seemed to be a more francophone team. But like I said, I'll never forget those games he played against Buffalo in the playoffs. Boys, oh boys, he drove the odd fans nuts because he would get booed. I don't know if I have tape, I can find it in this, but when he was on the road, I noticed that he had scored a goal in New York or the Islanders or whatever, and he got booed. I say to myself, he's made it. When you get booed, but you wouldn't think in New York he would get booed because Marcel had played with the Rangers, obviously. So I mean, I don't know that the biggest respect a Montreal Canadiens player would get on the road to announce their name, he would boo them. They booed a lot back in the day. And the words of Larry Robinson, he said, they booed us so much there was only like 15 people left in the rink because it was so weird. You would watch a Montreal game back in the day, even in Gilbert Dionne's era. And a lot of the fans, Montreal would be leading the third period, the fans would be leaving the rink. And you'd be watching the game and you think nobody was there, but he started with 16,000 people. But that 93 team was special. You had Gary Lehman, you had Bellows, you had Muller, you had Carbonneau, you had all the young players. But considering what Gilbert Dionne meant for the Montreal Canadiens, he helped rebuild the franchise from the loss in '89. That was a tough loss as well. And, it's just tremendous to know that there was no shadow for Gilbert in Montreal after that first season. I don't think Marcel, everybody thought Gilbert had a shadow. And it's good to see. I see Gilbert on Facebook every once in a while. I make kind of comedic comments on what he's up to. He's involved heavily with alumni, different stuff. It's a pleasure to know that the Montreal Canadiens of 1993 had players like Gilbert Dionne, because he, if anything, you couldn't forget him. He was memorable in more ways than one. He was a good interview. He was always doing something special on the ice. He's a true Montreal Canadian. And we couldn't have won the cup without him and Lehman and Bellows and Muller and all what they call the not say the spear carriers. These were the torch bearers. He was a torch bearer. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's the latest on our Montreal Canadiens alumni podcast series. If you like what we're doing here, give us a like, comment, subscribe, or share. And if you see Gilbert Dionne in your travels, wherever he may be, just remember, ask to see his ring, because that's a beautiful Stanley Cup ring in 1993. And only a little bit over 3 dozen people have them, give or take, players and management or whatever. I'd like to have one of those rings, but the problem is if I put it on once, I would cry like a baby. I cried after game 5 against the Kings, not because we bet that bitch Gretzky, which was why I was crying. I was just giggling. I kept on seeing Patrick trying to say I'm going to Disney World or whatever, doing it 2-3 times, and I said only in Montreal where you can go to Disneyland or Disney World after winning a Stanley Cup. Thanks for listening. Have a good one. And as we like to say in Northern New Brunswick and Southern New Brunswick, ole, 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 ole.